The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Hey everyone, and welcome to All You Can Eat. It is the podcast about deliciousness. I'm your host, Rob Rosenthal, coming to you live here on the 17th of November, 2020, just before the Thanksgiving holiday. And of course, this one is going to be, well, unlike most of the other ones, for all the obvious reasons. But I'm very excited about the podcast tonight anyway, because I have as my guest the very special Andrew Zimmern. And I am fairly sure that most of you have seen Andrew. He has won an Emmy and James Beard Award for being really one of the great TV personalities in the world of food. Perhaps you've seen him travel the world in Bizarre Foods, or more recently on MSNBC when he was doing What's Eating America documentary series. Andrew is not only a TV personality, he's also a chef, a restaurateur, an entrepreneur, and a philanthropist. So we have a very exciting conversation coming up for you. And then after that, even some more about Thanksgiving, including my conversation with the lively and vivacious and talented Carla Hall, who herself is going to be helping this Thanksgiving and beyond, feeding many of the people in this country who are having difficulty in getting food on the table. But without further ado, let us start this evening with the great Andrew Zimmern. Here he is. Welcome to the All You Can Eat podcast. It's the podcast about deliciousness. Andrew Zimmern, glad to have you here with me.
Good to be here.
What I wanted to ask you was if it's okay to maybe, before we get right into the caretakers' Thanksgiving, that I ask you first a question about your early life, because I like to start at the beginning. And I'm sitting here in New York City, where we were both born and bred. Is it okay if I ask you a question first before we get into things?
Absolutely, your show. Have at it.
Bless your heart, my man. Among all the reasons to be kind of impressed by your many accomplishments, Emmy Award, Beard Award, successful TV personality, chef, entrepreneur, I think that I would say, Andrew, and I've seen your work for a lot of years, I have the greatest respect for your mental toughness. Tell the people who might not know about your early experience in New York City and how you overcame, your addiction, just for people who don't know the background of where you came from.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks, Rob. I love talking about this subject. And it in a way does tie into our caregivers' Thanksgiving as well. I was blessed. I didn't see it that way at first, but I was blessed to live through several tragedies early on in my life. Despite being born into a family of privilege and having a very, very lucky, fun, carefree childhood, I was, there were, just like everyone else's family, I endured some traumas that left a mark on me that I felt mistakenly could only be dealt with by devoting all of my time to drinking and drugging. And as a casual user in my teens, I became a drug addict, alcoholic, homeless, petty thief, living on the streets of New York by the time I was 28 years old. It was very much a downward trajectory. There was a long period of time in my late teens and through my 20s where I was living two lives at the same time, hyper responsibility versus hyper irresponsibility. I was making a name for myself in New York and LA on the food scene, and as a young cook and business person and restaurant manager and at one point restaurant owner. but eventually drank and drugged my way out of all of my opportunities. With my balloon completely deflated and feeling that I was a hopeless failure in life, I checked into a Flophouse hotel in late January of 1992, and I just wanted to drink myself to death. That was the plan. And through circumstances really having nothing to do with me, I was found by friends, went to my umpteenth intervention, except this time I listened, and found myself on January 28th, 1992, entering what is now the Hazelden Betty Ford Continuum of Care in Minnesota. And despite 1,000 other days where I said, this is it, I'm going to be done drinking and drugging, that day, it actually took hold. And I got better here and loved up by the people of Minnesota. I was sprinkled with dignity and respect by the food community here in Minnesota. And I haven't found it necessary to take anything that affects me from the neck up for now, what's almost 29 years.
Yeah, it's an outstanding story, and I guess if I could just follow up with one, the thing that triggered for me was that you said like the 18th or 19th intervention, and then eventually out there in Minnesota, you got to the. I'm curious if you know or if you can explain what's the difference between the first 18 times and then the 19th. You know, that when you make the commitment.
It's the most commonly asked question.
Sorry about that.
Observant. No, because it's the key, right? I mean,
right.
If we knew exactly what it was, we could cure this devastating illness. And it is an illness. The American Medical Association declares it an illness. The American Psychiatric Association declares it an illness. It is an illness of mind and body. There is a spiritual component to this illness as well. And what they have not been able to do is to get anybody sober through medicine.
Right.
They have shown that treatment does work for a lot of people, which is why I'm all for mental health parity acts and mental health parity laws that allow there to be affordable residential treatment for alcoholism and drug addiction, because I think if we could do that, we'd save a lot of money in the criminal justice system, a lot of money with cops on the street, jails, prisons, and of course, prison reform. But it's the spiritual component to this thing that is so incredible. At the moment that I was really willing to give up and do anything was the moment I started to get well.
Sure.
And that's what's fascinating about all of these isms, right, is that we hold on to the very last. Everyone, my whole life, from the time I was 13 onwards, people suggested to me, parents, friends, counselors, teachers, grandparents, cops, lawyers, shrinks, doctors, everyone said, hey, you might want to try not doing drugs and drinking. Just step away from it for a couple of days, see how that works. And I was absolutely willing to try every suggestion thrown at me except that one.
Right.
And once I was actually able to try abstinence, incredibly magical things happened. The transformation for me was spiritually directed. I have been around long enough and heard enough stories to know that it was an unsuspected inner resource that I had, combined with the not religious, but the spiritual act of actually letting go, that allowed some room in my life for recovery. And I would encourage people, especially at this time of year, to seek out the myriad of online resources that are available for addicts and alcoholics, because we need to get people well in this country.
Yeah, it's good and helpful. Thank you for that. Now, we can go into this. Now, in addition to the aforementioned background and your bio that I spoke about, at heart, you are a storyteller And what it doesn't say in your bio, but I'm saying right now, is that you're a philanthropist. So tell the folks about the Caregivers Thanksgiving. Let's start with that.
Well, it's funny because it does tie into the beginning of your story. I got well. People cared for me. Mm-hmm. They didn't give me money. They didn't give me things. They just treated me like a human being and treated me with dignity and respect. And one of the ways in which I learned I could hang on to my own wellness was by doing service work, doing things for other people. It's almost like a yoga. When you do things for other people, you don't have enough time to worry about yourself. Mm-hmm. You're taught lessons in life that build up and actually transform how you think. You can't think yourself into right acting, but you can act yourself into right thinking. And that's basically the story of my recovery. So when AARP called, and by the way, an organization that does incredible work without pointing a lot of attention to themselves. Mm-hmm. They are in the number one advocate for older Americans, and most importantly, also the largest champion of those who care for those older Americans, right? Especially unpaid family caregivers, right? Because nurses and other first responders and other types of caregivers have organizations, usually professional ones, that advocate for them. But the largest number of caregivers in America are unpaid family caregivers. There are millions of them. And that number has only increased during the pandemic when the stress and strain on the rest of our caregiving, professionalized caregiving community has grown. So when AARP called and said, would you be involved in this? I jumped at the chance. Right. Because 2020 has absolutely turned our lives upside down, right? In so many ways. And this Thanksgiving is going to be like no other. It also happens to be my favorite holiday. There's no gifts. It's about gratitude, and it's all about a big meal. Right. Well, the gratitude part we can work on. We're not going to be able to have the meal the way that we wanted to before. So the opportunity for someone who spent the last 20 years professionally telling people how to cook for 30 people in their house, how to supersize everything. I'm now going to do a whole bunch of recipes and talking at AARP Presents a Caregiver's Thanksgiving, the official name, about how we downsize it, but still hang on to the magic of gratitude and how we can honor the caregivers in our communities. People can register at aarp.org/coronavirus, aarp.org/coronavirus. Good. We're going to have a presentation. We're going to be doing a lot of great conversation, taking listener and viewer Q&A, but I'm also going to be demonstrating some dishes. We have some incredible recipes for folks. And it's really a way to say thank you and to raise awareness for the invaluable work that caregivers of all ages give to our older Americans. I cared for all three of my parents the last 8 to 10 years of their lives, even flew my mother out here and bought her a house and got her sort of set up so she could be near family and those that could care for her, and cared for my dad and stepdad right up until their passing as well. So it's something that comes really naturally to me. I'm really still quite a jerk. But if I wasn't doing this kind of work and taking the focus off of me, it scares me to think of the type of human being that I would be. I think that doing things for other people is the secret sauce to keeping yourself right-sized, and that action step of service work is what changes how we think and feel about other human beings. I was taken off of the scrap heap of life and given umpteenth chance to make something of myself. I did. I owe it to so many people to pay that forward every which way that I can. You're very generous to call me a philanthropist. I really rely on an incredible team here at my workplace that does a lot of that work with me. And we devote a lot of our time to this type of work, and it's extremely fulfilling. So to be able to join AARP in a year where, look, there are hundreds of thousands of families that have lost a loved one this year. There are millions that have lost a job, right? We can't travel. We can't see family like we used to. We need to be able to provide some information and some relief for people. So that's what we're doing with the Caregivers Thanksgiving.
It's really great and important work. It reminds me that I had a lovely chat yesterday with Carla Hall, who is doing work for Feeding America again. And I guess what I would refer to in that conversation, because it's about what you're talking about, is that this particular Thanksgiving of 2020 represents a unique opportunity that when we're not getting together and necessarily feeding each other food, but it's a great opportunity to feed your soul. And the best way to feed your soul is by what you're saying, is doing or giving. So whether you are, doing her work and finding ways to contribute to the local food pantry, or the work that you're doing, which is to ensure that caregivers are being, respected and taken care of. These are super important opportunities for all of us in this time to help others in need, and it's selfishly, it's what you said. It makes you feel good about your own self that you finally do have an opportunity to give back. Right?
Look, there's we're doing a special turkey recipe on Thursday, and I want people to tune in and see it. But whether you're cooking that yourself for your nuclear family group that's potted safely together of 2, 3, 4 people, whatever, or if you want to use these recipes to do some simple cooking and be able to go drop it by the houses of older neighbors,
sure.
Older friends of yours. These are recipes that are designed to keep warm, travel well, and give people some inspiration to lend a helping hand wherever it's needed. So we're raising awareness, and we're also providing a lot of tools that day, tomorrow, Thursday, so that this can everyone can get a little bit of the love and the warm hug that not only food gives, but this idea of sharing gratitude with each other. We can't gather in large groups, but we can make phone calls. We can slide cards under people's doors. Right. There are so many different things that we can do to tell people we care about them, especially in this year, one that has literally shaken our country to its core. I was actually on a call with Carla this morning with a national organization that we both support that does work for young kids in America. I was on just literally before we started talking, was on the call with the governor's task force here in Minnesota. States all across America are announcing closures and things like that. And it's so crucial and so vital that at this daunting time in the fall of 2020, that we do the most we can to reach out to all people. We need, this is a time to be as unselfish as possible.
Yeah. In fact, I was going to, in this discussion, which we'll keep positive in spite of talking about the pandemic. What I was going to say to you is this: I found myself going into March. Basically, I had been to 15 countries in the year preceding the lockdown, which pales in comparison to your, I think, 250-day a year kind of normal travel schedule. So my question to you on the positive side is do you see any kind of upside at all to the pandemic? Like, do you get to spend more time with your kid or with people that you like? What's the upside to the pandemic?
Yeah, well, the upside has been, I'll just speak for myself personally. My schedule is insane. I'm overcommitted. My life has as much velocity as anybody that I know. And despite some days matching that, and it's really funny, in some weeks it's even exceeded what it was before for a variety of really unusual reasons.
Right.
Being home for this long has allowed me the opportunity to spend more time with my colleagues here at work, re-examine what I want to do with my home life, allowed me to do some things at home. This summer, I did more of the things that I love doing like fishing and sailing and playing disc golf and being in the water than I have any other summer.
Nice.
It's unusual. Everyone in the office always dreaded October and November because I would be gone 27, 28 days out of each month, because that's when everyone is having a gala or an event or something that would take me away from being home. And I almost got a pit in my stomach come August or September that, here we go. And this October and November, we've done everything virtually. I think we have 3 events that we're participating in tomorrow. Right. I've already participated in one today. And I've done 3 interviews for the Caregivers Thanksgiving. And then we have an event tonight for DC Central Kitchen that is, the Capitol food fight. So we're, in a sense, busier than ever, but I'm here at home and it allows me to sort of recalibrate what it is that is important to me.
Before I ask you some questions about food, let me do one more in this ilk here, because you have been outspoken in terms of your political opinion. And what should be clear to anybody that's paying attention is that there are 2 Americas at this point. Do you see any chance for unification, any type of reconciliation, any opportunity to kind of maybe bring more dignity, more respect, more compassion, more understanding to the table?
I think so. And I think without putting too fine a point on it, I think we need to reframe. I made a commitment a month ago. I've been pretty good about it, to phrase things in a civic way and not a political way. And I made that decision when I felt at a certain point the conversation around the upcoming election was becoming more divisive than ever. And I thought to myself, regardless of who wins, it's going to be a close election. We're going to have incredible turnout, and we're going to have to come together and heal. There is a huge, you said the word opportunity.
Right.
We have an incredible opportunity in America today to reach out to everyone. I've spent a lifetime in food, and I mean, just take Bizarre Foods, what most people know me best as. That was about celebrating our commonalities, not our differences, right? We need to get back to that place. We need to be talking about the things that we have in common. It's another reason why I think that Thanksgiving is such a wonderful, this holiday could not come at a better time, despite the election issues, despite COVID-19, despite the unemployment, the recession, despite all of these things, to find a way to be grateful, to celebrate with each other, even if it's over Zoom or phone calls or FaceTime or whatever mechanism it is, to be able to share food with each other, to be able to sort of break down those barriers. There's been a running joke for the last 3 or 4 years about what do you do at family gatherings when people have different ideologies about things. I'd like to get back to some civic conversation where we are talking about our mutual love and admiration for other things and try to put aside those things so that we can heal ourselves. Look, there's going to be people on either side of this argument that you just can't reach. The vast majority of us are just wonderful Americans with the same hopes and dreams for ourselves and our kids. We have to find a way to keep the conversation civic and to move forward. I've been a broken record. So many of our issues right now they're not red or blue. They're not left or right. It's about all of us being Americans and moving forward. And in its own way, the other reason that I love the AARP Caregivers Thanksgiving is that it allows us to share in a very non-confrontational way the thing that we all have in common. We all have parents. We all have kids. We all love our family members. Those of us who are lucky enough to have food, and remember, there is full on 20% of America is food insecure, if not more. I mean, the latest data, predates the explosion of the C-19 economic impact that has lowered so many families that were on the poverty threshold beneath the safety line. But I really, really think that coming together over food, and this is yet again another way to do that, is a problem-solving activation, which is another reason that I'm thrilled to be involved in it.
Do you still love to cook?
I do it every day. Absolutely. It's like a yoga. I actually, when we started talking, one of my workmates was behind me peeling some chestnuts because we're doing a bunch of stuff getting ready for the caregivers' Thanksgiving. And I just sat there, with my mask on, peeling some chestnuts with her. And I turned to her and I said, wow, this is like yoga. And I'm a broken record about it, but once someone actually gave me what the dictionary definition was of yoga, I realized that, when I'm out playing the sports that I love, when I am cooking, especially, I'm not thinking about the 800 worries and concerns that I have in my brain. I've often said in interviews over the last year that I feel sorry for people that don't have a thing to tune out, to just focus on. If you're playing catch with someone, a very famous doctor wrote a great thin volume book about this for business leaders. If you're really stressed, go outside and play catch with someone for 20 minutes. When you're in your prefrontal cortex and you're all worried and facts and figures and everything's going crazy, if you go play catch with someone, you can't think about those things. You have to be in your lizard brain, in your amygdala, to actually prevent a ball from hitting you in the face, right? So if you go and play catch with someone, you're actually engaged in an act that allows you just to focus on that act. And same thing with thinking. The human brain keeps you safe. It won't allow you to think about too many problems while you're working with a sharp knife. You're too concerned about cutting yourself.
There's a great book.
So anyway, I use food. Not only do I love to do it, it's how I express myself. It's how I share things with friends and family. It's how I express love, rightfully or wrongfully. But at the end of the day, I go home and I cook every single night just because.
Yeah, same here. There's a great book you've reminded me of called Flow by an author with so many syllables, probably Czechoslovakian, with so many syllables in his name that I wouldn't even try to pronounce it. But the book Flow describes that moment when you are so involved in an activity that it's all that there is. It's worth reading. Speaking of books, I wrote one myself. The premise behind it was, it's a cookbook, and the premise behind it I can articulate in 6 words: most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. Right, and so with that in mind, let's apply that thinking to the Thanksgiving meal. What should we tell the people, since they're not going to maybe be as elaborate or ornate this year, how to get a great Thanksgiving meal with the most taste, fewest ingredients, and least effort? Do a turkey, do a stuffing, do a gravy, whatever turns you on.
It's why, because I know that you don't know what I'm making tomorrow. So it's amazing to me that you sort of hit the nail on the head. We've tried to keep the menu tomorrow and my recipes as simple as possible. My favorite side dish of all has 4 ingredients. One of them is salt.
That doesn't even count, for God's sake.
That's about as simple as you can get. Right. And I happen to think that if you can put elements of, right, sour, salty, bitter, sweet, and spicy, along with umami, if you can combine those, get at least 4 of those into a dish with very few ingredients, it's going to be extremely craveable, which is why if you make the switch from butter to cultured butter, your food's going to taste better because the cultured butter is slightly soured, nice, and has more umami in it. If you use fresh olive oil, right, the olio nuovo that is just dropping right now, that has more complex flavors, including a bitter note to it, anything that you use that has olive oil in it, it's going to taste better because it's going to bring out lots of the other flavors. It's going to play counterpoint to them. So there are ways intellectually to actually design dishes. So tomorrow's menu is all about very simple foods with very simple flavors, but using some ingredients that when they're put together actually elevate the game. This is why so many food geeks, professional and otherwise, are all, crazy about biodynamic features of farmers markets and the vegetables that come from them. Because, a zucchini that comes from a giant agri-farm somewhere that sits in the refrigerator at the supermarket for 4 or 5 days before you take it out of a refrigerated case will not have as much flavor on its own, even if you just roast it with only a little teeny sprinkle of salt, or let's just say nothing on it, right? It will not taste half as good as the one that comes out of a farm and never saw a refrigerator, right? And so it's what we cook is as important as how we cook it, right? Which is why we're so insistent that while the economics of eating well have created two Americas when it comes to food, and sadly, eating well in America is a class issue, we can choose to eat more healthily, more beans and grains and greens and farinaceous foods and all of that stuff. Use less meat and choose our dollar spend more wisely so that we're getting a higher quality of ingredients, so we have more of that wholesomeness when it comes to taste. My son, when he was little, all the kids would be playing out in the street during the summertime, and he would always run in, just like all kids, and say, "Hey, can so-and-so and so-and-so eat dinner?" Sure. And they would come, they'd eat dinner. We always had 3 or 4 what are conventionally referred to as side dishes, along with whatever central protein thing we were always slicing and portioning, because that way we would eat less of it and eat more of all the vegetables and the sides. And I would get calls from all of Noah's friends' parents around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, when typically the time that 6, 7-year-olds are being put down to bed.
Right.
And I would get calls from the parents saying, "So what did you feed my kid?" Because he came home and I was, reading him a story, and I said, "How was dinner at the Zimmerns?" "Oh, it was great. We ate this roasted broccoli or cauliflower. It was amazing. And, we can't get our kid to eat vegetable. What are you putting in that thing?" Right. And really, it was just wholesome ingredients with an eye towards craveable flavors. We're doing a great example of that with our sweet potato dish tomorrow. If you can put just a little bit of butter, something salty and fermented like fish sauce, and a little bit of sugar, and just toss that with some plain sauteed or steamed vegetables,
right?
You're going to diffuse those few tablespoons of fats and sugars and salts out amongst 8 to 12 portions, right? Because you always make more than you need. So you're actually eating in a very healthful way, under the limits in terms of the salt and the fat and the added sugars.
Sure. But with the maximum taste.
You're putting just enough magic and umami into that dish that kids can't stop eating it.
Then this question is going to be odd to you because it's completely random and it's not healthy at all. But what was your favorite TV dinner growing up?
Oh, it was the fried chicken one.
Yeah.
I think like everyone's, the Swanson TV dinner was a big part of my life growing up. Second favorite was Salisbury steak.
I can't believe that one.
Because the gravy would gelatinize, and then the gravy would crust up around the edge,
and then the crust was good.
Salisbury steak area, and it was. I just loved it. I begged. My parents cooked from scratch, and I had to beg them for TV dinners once a week, and I just thought it was the greatest thing in the whole world. What's so funny? The hottest thing in fried chicken right now is Korean style fried chicken with a brittle as glass, hard exterior that when you tap against it, you can actually hear it clicking.
Right.
That Swanson fried chicken dinner in the 60s,
right?
Not the one in the 70s and 80s, in the 60s, had that same quality. You would go to crunch. I mean, you would hear crunch, ripple, and shards of crust would explode everywhere. But I liked the side dish with that. And also, if I remember correctly, the chicken had the little mini apple pie dessert with it, and the corn succotash side that I liked.
That was a lovely. That was the best TV dinner. Now, because you have mentioned gratitude 3 times during our conversation, allow me to express mine to you for not only today and the time that you've spent here, but for everything that you do. It's really super impressive, and I'm not. Look, I come from the same city that you do. I'm not easily impressed, but if you look around and people look up Andrew Zimmern, you can't help but see all the different things that you're involved in that give people pleasure, that give them your time, that contribute all of your generosity. Here's a quote that I love about generosity, about gratitude, Andrew. It is not joy that makes us grateful. It is gratitude that makes us joyful. I thank you for that. And before we take off, let's remind the people one more time the website that they can go to register.
aarp.org/coronavirus. They can register and tune in. Just get on that website, and we'll see them on Thursday. And I would encourage people, thank you for the kind words, Rob, and the opportunity to share with your audience. But at andrewzimmern.com, we have a partners page that does have a listing of everything that we do and get involved in, including this AARP event. So people can go to andrewzimmern.com and see the other things that we're involved in. And because we talked about recovery, there are some links there for those. If you're struggling, please reach out to another human being. Tell one other person your truth, and you might be able to save your own life. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, too. You're a beautiful man, and wish you well. Anything I can ever do to help, feel free. You know how to find me.
I appreciate that, Rob.
So there you have it, my conversation with Andrew. Just really not only kind of a terrific guy, and cook and celebrity and all those things, but you can sense the difference that he makes in the lives of the people that he's able to touch. AARP.org/coronavirus is what you want to go to sign up for what he's doing over there. Well worth it. And AndrewZimmern.com, you can see all the things he does with his partners. So that's available for you both. Thanks again to Andrew. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, I also had a lovely talk yesterday with Carla Hall. What I'd like to say about Carla, and you've seen her again. She was on The Chew. She got famous during, Top Chef. Again, a delightful human being who is a chef and a personality and also a do-gooder. I mean, she's involved in a project to essentially get people to help contribute to their local food pantries, because in this country, and it's sad to say, we have legitimate food insecurity. I mean, Andrew said like 20-25%, but even if it was 1 in 7, even if it was 15% of the people in this country, this rich United States of America, you got a lot of people that don't have enough food on the table for their family. It's a sadness. So I spoke with Carla yesterday. We had a laugh. It's not recorded here, so I can just summarize for you. A delightful woman who grew up in Nashville. We talked a little bit about the beauty of Nashville fried chicken. That seems to be a recurring theme this evening, which is a spicy fried chicken served in some white bread that helps absorb some of the grease and some of the spice and all that kind of stuff. And we talked about the fact that she started her career as an accountant and realized very early on, within a year or two, that she hated that. And that's when she got involved with food. And look how that has worked out for her. Delightful woman. And I guess what I would say to you is, if you can, use this Thanksgiving during the 2020, pandemic, coronavirus lockdown, to help someone, to bring some food to someone, even if it's canned goods, or especially if it's canned goods or boxed goods that you can bring to a local food pantry. You want to find out where that is. feedingamerica.org is what you want to look up. And, you can follow Carla, like you can Andrew, on their Twitter and Instagram feeds, which, again, you'll get plenty more information about what it is they're doing. But my thanks to Carla for spending some quality time together and telling me about the program she's working on, which is really to tell you about what people in this country are doing to help others. So important during this Thanksgiving season. I am going to leave it there for this evening. It doesn't feel like the usual Thanksgiving, so I don't feel compelled to do the usual Thanksgiving recap, review, suggestions. I mean, look, if you're going to be drinking, I was always a big fan of the, it's the season for Beaujolais Nouveau, which goes super well with the Thanksgiving meal. If you're not going to roast up an entire turkey, I love turkey. I'm happy roasting a whole turkey. It doesn't have to be complicated. But frankly, I'm just as happy sometimes doing the breast or doing the legs or doing the wings or the thighs. People who know me know that I am a thigh guy, whether it's chicken or turkey. And if you want to do something exciting, do my Buffalo Burberry, turkey thighs. 3 ingredients to awesomeness. Burberry spice, Frank's hot sauce, a turkey thigh in an oven until it gets all crispy. I would have that in a heartbeat. I also find sweet potatoes in general to be one of the few foods in the world that need absolutely nothing. Is it going to hurt you to add a little bit of butter, a little bit of salt? No, it will not. Maple syrup is okay. You want a nice spice to put in your sweet potatoes? I love the Baharat or the Ras El Hanout. Those kind of Middle Eastern Moroccan spices are fantastic. Keep it easy. Take it easy. Stay home. Zoom with your family and friends this Thanksgiving. And think about doing something good. Whether it's through this aarp.org/coronavirus program that Andrew is working on, whether it's some of the other kind of partner programs that Andrew has, andrewzimmern.com, or feedingamerica.org, which Carla is involved with. This is a good year to kind of change things up, and most important, to express, gratitude to those in your life who you feel grateful for. So with that, my friends, this has been episode number 95 of All You Can Eat. I am Robert Rosenthal, coming to you as I do on Wednesday evenings live at 8 p.m. here on the Armed Radio. And then you can look up any one of the previous, now 95 episodes of All You Can Eat, featuring chefs, restaurateurs, authors, cookbook authors, celebrities, food people, because that's the kind of thing that we talk about. You can find those programs either on iHeartRadio by looking up All You Can Eat, or on Spotify by doing a search for All You Can Eat. And I will tell you, because, why not? You want the most taste with the fewest ingredients and the least effort. There is always my book called Short Order Dad, which is one guy's guide to making food fun and hassle-free. That, my friends, is the show. Until next time, remember, life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on